Hello everyone, I am Prakhar and today I am recording this video because I want to talk about a book which I've been reading recently, and it's not a book review because personally I think to review a book you need to be a scholar first. I'm not a scholar, so I wouldn't say it's a book review, but it's just a book talk. I can't term it more than that. And it's a book of history, no doubt it's a book of history. But this time, the book I'm going to talk about is not a book which is entirely history. Then what is it? I mean, that is the question. First, let me tell you about the book first. The book is called Akbar. The book is called Akbar. It's written by Shazi Zaman. I think it was released 2 or 3 years ago, 1.5 year or 2 years ago, I guess. Back then, I did not have enough money in my account to buy this new book. I wanted to buy it uh, with all my heart. But recently, I've been able to buy this, and let me tell you, it took me into another zone, another world. It was as if I was displaced from modern India to medieval India, and it was as if I'm experiencing the world of Akbar that the writer has built here. I'm not very fond of novels. First, let me tell you, I'm not very fond of novels. I do not read novels very often. I've read just one or two, I guess. That also very disinterestingly. And I've read some novels of Arundhati Roy. I've read some one novel of Maxim Gorky, that is the famous uh, mother. But I'm not very fond of reading novels. I've read one or two Hindi novels also. But being a student of history, I find only those novels relevant which also talk about history, which also end up talking about history. So I'm very choosy. I'm very peculiar when I want to study a book. It's like I exactly know what book I want to read, and that is why my book list will find mostly the history books uh, enlisted in it. So talking about novels first, novels do not appeal me because I personally feel there is less of historicity in novels and more of creativity. I'm not saying creativity is wrong. Creativity may be expressed in so many different ways, but showing creativity through books of through the novels, using historical facts as a masala to enhance your sale of the novel is not something I'm very fond of. And the novel writers do take this liberty to screw and to mold the facts of history. There are very few novels who there are very few novels which fall onto the test of historicity, which fall true onto the test of historicity. And that is why my choice of novels, my choice of book has become so limited. Being a history of student of history, that I've almost stopped reading novels. I should, in fact, there may be so many things I'm missing, I know, but being stuck to history is something which has pulled me back again and again, and uh, and it has changed my way of looking at things. Anyway, coming back to this book, why I'm talking about this book is that, as the name suggests, the book itself is about Akbar, of course. The name itself is Akbar. And why I want to talk about this book is that, first, it is not a book of history. Of course, it is a book of history, but it is not entirely a book of history. Second, it is not a novel also. The writer himself calls this book, very interestingly, a novel of history. And that is why I want to talk about this book. The contents written here falls somewhere between the idea of a novel and idea of a core history book. So if you read a core history book, let me tell you, it appeals only to the students who have been studying history for past 5 to 6 or 7 years. Otherwise, no one would want to read a book of history. No one would want to read a book of core historical knowledge. And I think that is why there is this limitation. That is why there is this disinterest in the people of India. They know so little about their historical past. However, they want to talk a lot. They talk a lot. They talk rubbish. They make videos. They forward messages. They talk a lot about history. They want to talk about it, but they don't want to study it, because once they start reading it, they find it so disinteresting and so tough that they end up giving up after a few pages. So then they're not interested in it. So a core history book appeals to only those who are into the subject of history for a long period of time. A core novel would appeal to only those. In fact, novel appeals to almost all classes of people. However, to the people who are into literature for a longer period of time, a book of a novel or a book which has anthologies or stories or some play, all those books will appeal to the people who are into literature. Although novels and plays and the other artistic forms, they appeal to most of the people in general. But this is not the case with history. However, the core English people or core Hindi people or Urdu studying people would relate to a novel more than a person who is studying physics, let's say. But this book is interesting because this breaks the shackle of those those walls which create, which creates the subjects, which creates the boundaries of subjects, because it percolates between history and literature, let's say. So let me give you an example. So if you're reading an episode in the life of Akbar, this book will not offer you the scholarly interpretations of how that phase was or how that event can be seen. It would not say, according to Satish Chandra, this event was like this. According to Fala writer, Fala historian, the arguments are these. This will not. The contents of this book will not talk like that. The best part about this book is that, not being a book of history is its positive point, because it takes freedom. However, even that freedom which the writer has taken is very limited. So by the time he thinks that he is crossing the boundaries of historical knowledge to a point where it may end up disrupting the fact, or where it may end up disrupting the historical episode, he pulls himself back and he comes back to history. So in a way, let's say you start reading a paragraph and you start reading the first few lines as a historical fact. But then as you move in, the story goes beyond a historical story and it starts percolating into a novel. It starts percolating into a literary story or literary way of speaking something. But by the time you think that it has become a complete literary piece, it again pulls itself back to the piece of history. And that is the beauty of this book, because the writer has made sure that he does not obscure the facts of history. He does not fall out of the historical knowledge. And at the same time, he keeps the reader engaged, making the reader think that there is some sort of fiction out of it, although there is not. So the historical accuracy of this book is amazing. All that you have read, for the students of history, although all that you have read in the books of Satish Chandra or Harbans Mukhia or other people who have worked on Mughal India, all that you have read will be there in the book. There is nothing farce that is discussed. There is nothing out of the box that is discussed. However, when you read all those episodes in this book, you will be entertained. When you read a historical article, you are not entertained, but this will provide you entertainment also within the limits of historical knowledge, within the limits of, let's say, uh, the core historical idea of speaking something. So that is why this book appealed me. The second fact that I want to outline is that there is no proper chronology of saying things. And that is also another fact why this book cannot entirely be called a book of history, because in history books, in textbook text in a textbook of history, or in a, let's say, scholarly book of history, you will find a chronological order of each and every event, each and every uh, detail. But in this book, things go haywire. The book starts somewhere else, it ends up discussing something else, and ends up finally at something else. So let's say Akbar is taking a military campaign and he's walking somewhere towards Gujarat, towards the Rajputana kingdom, and he wants to deal with some ruler who is ruling in the Rajputana states, one of the Rajputana states, let's say. So, and he has taken a break in the midway at some place, and all of a sudden he starts remembering how this place was also relevant for Babur, how this place was also relevant for Humayun. What incidents had happened at this place during the time of Babur or Humayun. So all those stories will again come back there. So it's like a historical novel which keeps you telling these stories of Mughal India all over again and again, but not in a chronological order, more in an entertaining manner. The third fact that I want to add here is that the ways in which these stories of Mughal India are written here are very, very close to the finest details that are available in the historical knowledge. If you read the books on Mughal India, and when you read this book again, you will find the stories which are related to Mughal India, they are very precisely discussed. And apart from being precise, all those details which must have been missed somewhere, they are also included. And the best part is that the emotions related to those events, the humane part of the events, let's say the Battle of Panipat or the Battle of Khanwa, all these battles will have the retelling of these battles, have some emotions embedded in this book, have some humane part to it. And that is why the reader would want to read it more. The reader would want to delve into those stories of battles and military campaigns and all the other stories also. So that is why this book is a novel of history. Uh, I think this is the first book of its kind which calls itself by the name of a novel of history. And hats off to Shazi Zaman. The words that he has used, the descriptions of each and every detail that he has done. I mean, there are some details wherein he goes back to the historical details of words also. There are descriptions wherein he goes back to the historical details of development of a particular institution. So hats off to Shazi Zaman, the way he has written this book. Not only the students of history or the teachers of history or the scholars of history would find it appealing, but even a layman who has some idea about the Mughal India or about Akbar will try to, even a layman would find it interesting and would love completing it. In fact, he or she wouldn't leave the book after reading a few pages of getting bored, or as there is this popular notion about the books of history. The last thing I want to mention is that although the name of the book is Akbar, however, it is not entirely about Akbar. The book has a holistic knowledge, a holistic content which is needed to understand the Mughal India in its entirety. I say that because through the character of Akbar, all the major events, all the major institutions, all the major campaigns, be it political campaigns or let's say some economic institutions which were developed during Mughal India, or some other tradition which was invented, or let's say, or carried forward uh, from the past, all those have been discussed, and all those have been dealt in very beautifully, very craftfully. Never ever I lost interest. Every other para had something new to offer, and I'm still no, I have not still completed it. and I am sure that I'm not going to lose interest in any of the pages, because for me it's very interesting, particularly because I have been a student of history. But I'm quite sure this is one of the books who will appeal to the layman as it is appealing to me in the same way. So thank you so much to first to Shazi Zaman. Also, one thing I would like to add here: the reviews of this book mentioned here at the back mentions one of the reviews by Mukul Keswan. So I was one of the students of Mukul Keswan. I was taught by him. So that also piques my interest why I should read this book. Thank you so much, Shazi Zaman, and thank you so much, Mukul Keswan, for this beautiful review. And thank you so much to you all. I hope you would buy this book and read this book and maybe revert back, maybe say something about it after you are done reading it, because I'm still halfway through. And whenever I sleep, whenever I am alone, all those stories keep on revolving at the back of my head, especially the details of the wars that he has described, the way he has described the battle of Panipat. I had never read such a description of that battle anywhere in, particularly in history books. So this is a very engaging read. Please go through it, especially those who are a student of history. I would appeal them. I would love to hear something about this book after they are done reading it. And thank you. That's it.